This last offseason, we were notable critics of T. Higgins and his dynasty value. Consistently being valued as a top 10 dynasty wide receiver, we said pump the brakes. This guy, he's not even produced as a wide receiver 1 from a fantasy production standpoint. Let's chill. And we got trashed. And now, T. Higgins, dynasty value, in the toilet. I mean, that's obviously relative. It's not really in the toilet, but it's pretty freaking bad. And when you go over to Keep Trade Cut, which everybody uses for market values, T. Higgins is now the wide receiver 21. I think he was as high as the wide receiver 8 in the offseason last year. You're talking about a substantial drop for a very talented wide receiver that is playing on a very good team. So with T. Higgins, looking at his yards per route run over the last 3 years, in 2021, he was 10th in the league with 2.43 yards per route run. Last year, he was 25th in the league, so he took, a 15-spot drop, 209 yards per route run. Still good. This year, 58th in the league, 1.47 yards per route run. I think there's multiple parts to this, but let's look at target separation. 31st in 2021, 58th in 2022, 94th in 2023. I think this is a double-edged sword here. And the analysis doesn't super matter, actually, because it's still not going to change our answer about what to do with T. Higgins. I think T. Higgins has regressed a little bit. I also think his situation and his injuries have played a part in that.
Huge part.
But don't get in our comments and tell me that this is in no part due to T. Higgins' regression. He has not been as good as in 2021. He looked really, really good. He's not looked really, really good since then. Oh, it's injuries. Oh, it's Joe Burrow. Oh, you want to talk about T. Higgins without a quarterback? Whatever. Get defensive. It doesn't matter. T. Higgins is a buy.
Well, and the biggest reason for this is the funny thing is everyone's biggest reason for T. Higgins being such a great value last year and being ranked where he was is because he was tied to Joe Burrow. Well, guess what? That's not the reason we're saying T. Higgins is a buy, because he's no longer going to be tied to Joe Burrow. They're not going to pay T. Higgins to a mega wide receiver 1 contract like he's probably going to earn next offseason. T. Higgins is probably going to go elsewhere. And whether it's with Houston and C.J. Stroud or in some other situation that's desperate for a wide receiver, I don't really care where it is as long as it's not the Falcons.
Right. Yeah.
I think T. Higgins is a screaming buy. In my opinion. Yes, I understand there's risk with his injury history. We were the first ones to mention. We said that before literally anyone else did in the dynasty space.
We were the only people that told you. Actually, there were a couple people that agreed with us on that. Like, it's just in our comments. So there were some people that were like, yeah, you're right. T. Higgins is wildly overvalued. Look around at creators, and not to toot our own horn, we're wrong about a lot of things.
Yeah, we are wrong about a lot of things.
We were dead on exactly accurate about T. Higgins and his value.
Yeah, but again, you have to move on from what we were right or wrong about last season and really not pump the brakes. You have to pivot to next year and start to reevaluate everyone's value.
We never hated the player.
And T. Higgins is not a player that we ever hated. We always loved him as a talent. And now the price is right for him. So let's see if we can't invest in him in a little bit, because what I know for sure is that mega deal, mega contracts always, at the very least, insulate the value of wide receivers or running backs or quarterback. Literally anyone in Dynasty Fantasy Football. Contracts are your best friend, and we know T. Higgins is going to get paid. And when he does, his value is going to skyrocket, because we know how many people out there in Dynasty Fantasy Football love him as a talent just like we do.
Don't hate the player, hate the price. We hated the price. We never hated the player.
Yeah.
The proof is in the pudding. We like the price, so we're buying. It's pretty simple, guys. Dynasty, don't let your feelings get involved and play the market. We will always stand by that, except with Jahmyr Gibbs where he hurt our feelings. Well, the Lions hurt our feelings.
Yeah, and that's not to say that there's no risk with buying T. Higgins. We just said it. A lot of the reason he's regressed is because of some situations like Joe Burrow being down, being banged up this season, and T. Higgins being consistently banged up over the last couple of years, and that's absolutely a concern. I mean, we saw someone like Jerry Jeudy be consistently banged up throughout his rookie contract, and that really sucked for him and his value. But I still view T. Higgins as a different situation, and honestly, just a better talent overall.
I think the next guy on this list is very talented as well.
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk. This is... I originally went into Brandon Ayuk's price in the middle of this season for Dynasty Fantasy Football, and I was like, okay, Ayuk's a guy that I'm looking to buy now. We were not big on investing in Brandon Ayuk this offseason in 2023 because everyone was expecting this to be Ayuk's year for the 4th year in a row. This is Ayuk's year. He's just going to go off and be a wide receiver 1. He's been a good wide receiver. He's been relatively productive. Yeah. But our question for Brandon Ayuk was never, can he have really big games and be super successful in San Fran's offense? It was, can he string together multiple games across the course of an entire season and be consistent? And he hasn't, honestly. He's commanded a very respectable amount of targets, but how consistent has it been?
Well, and it's a mix. It's mixed results, because in the last 4 games, I would call this 5 games, I call this consistent. 15.9, 14, 26, 13, 15. Like, that's consistently 13 to 15 points per game floor.
Okay.
But he scored touchdowns in each of the last 4 games.
Exactly.
But he's playing on the highest octane offense in the NFL.
Offense.
So that's not that unreasonable to assume that he's going to get a lot of touchdowns.
Right.
So, I mean, that you just have to look. 32 points, 7 points, 20 points, 9 points, 11 points, 10 points.
Yeah.
Like, it is hit and miss, but the floor for Brandon Ayuk is clearly 10 points. That's not a bad floor.
To me, that's a very good sign of a wide receiver who could translate as a very good, maybe even alpha wide receiver in dynasty fantasy football for the long term on another team. And I think a lot of people in Dynasty are anticipating that already. Again, according to Keep Trade Cut, wide receiver 11 right now on Keep Trade Cut. And that is a price that I just... At best, I'm not saying I don't think Ayuk is a sell.
He's not.
Because I think more often than not, you're not getting wide receiver 11 prices for Ayuk when you're dealing him at this point in time.
I have him at wide receiver 10. That's weird.
Oh, that's funny.
It must be changing in real time.
It must, changing in real time. But that's kind of the thing with Ayuk. I was going to go into this video and say Brandon Ayuk's a buy because, again, he's going to get a big contract and he's going to go into a situation I believe will be really helpful for him, even more beneficial consistency-wise than being in San Francisco's high-octane offense. But at this price, I think it's already happened. He's already at a very, very high price. I don't know how much higher he can go from this with a new deal.
Yeah, he is being projected as a 2nd-round pick in Dynasty. 3rd-round pick, just early 3rd. But he's a lot higher than I thought he was. Are you taking Olave or Ayuk?
Olave.
Are you taking Kyler or Ayuk?
Kyler.
Breece Hall or Ayuk?
Breece.
Waddle or Ayuk?
Waddle.
Kincaid or Ayuk?
Kincaid.
Puka or Ayuk?
Puka.
Devonta Smith or Ayuk?
Devonta Smith.
He's a sell. This is supposed to be a Vice video.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it was a question. Should we buy these players?
Oh, was it? Okay. So the answer is no then. Oh, yeah, buy these players. No, that was definitive. Buy last chance. Buy these players before
it's the title. Give me some grace.
All right.
Come on.
Still, I thought these were definitive buys. I think if you're getting those guys we just mentioned for him, I'm selling Brandon Ayuk because that's like I'm looking to pick up Brandon Ayuk to try to get him to be at that value next season. But if he's already there, like.
And this is why you take Keep Trade Cut with a grain of salt, everything it says. Because do you realistically see Brandon Ayuk going for top 12 wide receiver prices right now and him
Let us know in the comments.
Rounds?
Let us know.
I am not seeing it right now, which is why I've been tempted and very interested in investing in Ayuk at the moment. But if this is his current price, realistically, I'd say maybe pivot off and go get a guy that you're more comfortable with. But honestly, I think at the end of the day, I probably am still going to stick with holding. I just think that's what I'm going to do.
Ayuk has gone from 40th to 24th to 2nd in yards per route.
He's gotten better every
He's
single
gone
year.
from 63rd to 60th to 6th in ADOT. He's gone from 26th to 21st to 2nd in target quality rating. So there's something to be said about his target quality rating. If he's not in San Francisco next year, that's going to go down. You cannot. You don't really go up from 2nd unless you go to 1st, and I doubt that's happening.
His rise in value is totally merited.
It is merited. Where again, and I'm not saying sell Brandon Ayuk at all costs. I'm saying the guys I listed. If you can get those guys, I'd take them straight up. So if I'm working in a deal where I'm getting those guys back for Ayuk, I'm comfortable with that. I'm not sure that's debatable.
Yeah. And we'll continue to reevaluate this in the offseason. Once we have a full sample size, an entire season, and really know what his situation will end up being, we could totally change our verdict here and really see where his value settles. But that's just where we're at with him right now. Marquise Brown's going to be our next guy here. And it has just been really unfortunate seeing him this season. Even with Kyler Murray back, they just haven't been clicking on all cylinders like they were at the beginning of 2022. His yards per route run over the last 3 years have gone way down from 32nd to 54th to 61st this year. But when it makes complete sense when you look at his target quality rating and his catchable target rate over the last 3 seasons as well. His target quality rating in 2021 was 57th, and then it goes down to 82nd. And then it goes down to 96th this year. Catchable target rate, 59th to 76th to 98th this year. This guy's getting no help. Zero.
Well, and you got to understand the large majority of the sample size is from Josh Dobbs, who produced, but not necessarily benefited Marquise Brown a lot.
Right.
Big benefit to guys like Zach Ertz and Trey McBride when they're healthy.
Yes.
But again, I with Marquise Brown, there is one glaring reason why he's a buy. Him and the next guy. They have this in common.
Targets, volume, consistency.
And they're going to get paid.
Yes. I mean, all these guys are going to get paid. This is why all these guys are in this video until the end. We started with all these guys heading into their contract years. If they're going to go elsewhere or they're going to stick where they are, I think at the end of the day, you have to respect their current value because they're going to get that insulation.
Yeah. Michael Pittman is going to be the next guy on this list. And this is freaking hilarious because if Brandon Ayuk did even something like close to what Michael Pittman's doing, actually I know Brandon Ayuk is having as good of a season as Michael Pittman for sure. But the result is like, oh, we need to bump Brandon Ayuk. He's to be the wide receiver 10 on Keep Trade Cut. And with Michael Pittman, he's had 5 straight games of 8 or more receptions in PPR leagues. And we're like, yeah, wide receiver 19 on Keep Trade Cut. What the frick are we doing here, guys? 14th in targets, 14th in target share, 11th in targets, and 17th in target share. And then 7th in targets and 8th in target shares this year. 7th in targets in the entire league. Michael Pittman, a guy who is now the wide receiver 10 on the year in fantasy scoring. That's a wide receiver 1. This is the same Michael Pittman that we've watched his entire career, all 4 years of his career. And we said last year, this is not a guy that probably will ever be a wide receiver 1. And he is a wide receiver 1 right now. Because in his last, let me just read you his targets this season. In his last game against the Titans, Michael Pittman had 16 targets. He was targeted 16 different times in that game. Caught 11 of them and had a touchdown. 16, 13, 12, 8, 13, 5, 14, 7, 5, 11, 12, and 11 targets this year.
He could have 0 touchdowns the entire season, and he'd still be flirting with wide receiver 1 numbers. I'm not kidding. He's only at 4 receiving touchdowns this season.
He is just now coming out the end of his rookie. Like, let's look at the 3-year. We're playing Dynasty in 3-year windows. Is Michael Pittman going to be the 19th best wide receiver in the next 3 years in fantasy? No, he's going to be better than that. That means he's a buy because Michael Pittman is about to get paid. He's breaking Colts receiving records. You're talking about a team that had Peyton Manning as their quarterback and had Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne both catching passes.
He already broke Marvin Harrison's record in the first 4 years of his career, and we're not even done with his 4th season yet.
I do not understand the Pittman hate here. I was the first to be conservative of a Pittman until he proved it. He's proving it, guys.
Yeah, and part of me wonders, I don't know if it's necessarily hate. I think part of it is PTSD from last season because the expectations for Pittman last year were way, way, way too high.
They were in line with the expectations with Matt Ryan.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, look at the Panthers and Frank Reich. Like, I think you know now why it didn't really work out with Pittman last season. I think part of it as well from the PTSD on top of that is also just going to be, I'm not sure how many people have noticed this yet. He's been a very under the radar kind of guy. Amon-Ra St. Brown has kind of been like this really for the second half of the year as well. He kind of hit the ground running at the beginning of this year and everyone was like ARSB, and he's kind of leveled out a little bit, but he's been insanely consistent. Kind of the same sort of situation where you just haven't heard much about these guys. Michael Pittman in fantasy football isn't necessarily going to have the upside to win you a championship and score 50 points or anything like that. He's just very, very reliable, very, very constant, and he's the reason, not necessarily that you make a run in the playoffs, but that you make it to the playoffs because he can string together 10-plus games of scoring more than 10 points quite easily and pulling in that target volume. So I think that's going to be a lot of it. You could get to a situation in a couple months where people start to reflect on the season and they look at Pittman's numbers and they're like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll be shorted though going into next season because of Anthony Richardson coming back and his rushing upside, and I'll be buying all year long if that's the case.
Let's talk about who Michael Pittman's outproduced this year. He's outproduced Jamar Chase this year. Devonta Smith, he's outproduced. Brandon Ayuk, he's outproduced.
Oh.
Chris Olave, he's outproduced. Devontae Adams, he's outproduced. DK, outproduced him. Jordan Addison, Tank Dell, both outproduced him. Good rookies. Michael Pittman's been better. Garrett Wilson, outproduced him. Debo, outproduced him. Waddle, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, Christian Kirk, Zay Flowers. Need I keep going? And yet, wide receiver 19 is what we want to give him. Give this man his flowers and go buy him in Dynasty. Everywhere. Pretty please and thank you. Calvin Ridley is going to be on this list, and I know what you guys shorted Calvin Ridley. You hated him. Now you want to buy him, blah, blah, blah. We never hated Calvin Ridley. We hated Calvin Ridley's price. common theme, right? You may say, oh, you guys always flip-flop on your opinions because one time they're a buy and next...
Your opinions should change every single year because the market changes every single year.
My opinion on whether or not to buy a certain stock when you're day trading doesn't necessarily hinge on whether or not I love the company or love the idea. It hinges on whether, okay, that's freaking expensive, or, hey, I can get some of this stock pretty cheap, right? Right? It's just simple investing. And again, Dynasty is all about building a value portfolio. And so with Calvin Ridley, now I don't hate his price. And Calvin Ridley in the last couple of weeks has shown what he's capable of. We always knew he was capable of this. The problem was people thought in the first 10 games that Calvin Ridley was coming back this year that he would be this elite wide receiver 1 and that he was going to come back and he just didn't. And he screwed a lot of fantasy teams this year, a lot of dynasty teams. It was too late by the time he's clicked. But in his last 2 games, 31 points and 21 points, he does play tonight, actually. Recording this video on Monday, he plays tonight. Who knows what he'll do, but against the Cincinnati defense that's not been super good this year,
he'll probably
I'd expect him to have a pretty good game tonight.
Yeah.
Now Calvin Ridley, he's the wide receiver 27 on the year. On keep trade cut, Calvin Ridley has gotten as low as like wide receiver 30-something. He's wide receiver 34 right now. Yes, please. 31-point ceiling, wide receiver 34, playing with Trevor Lawrence. Why wouldn't you buy Calvin Ridley right now? Why wouldn't you? It's not about Calvin Ridley. It never was. People get so emotionally attached to players, and they accuse us of doing the same thing. And I think the proof is here that we do not get emotionally attached or detached to players. T. Higgins, Calvin Ridley, 2 of the biggest wide receiver buys in Dynasty right now. Calvin Ridley, go get him. He's been decent this year. I'm going to read you 2 sets of stats here. The first one's going to be from his 2020 season, where he's 5th, and the second's going to be this year. He was 10th in target share that year, and he's 39th in target share this year.
Yeah.
That year, he was 11th in ADOT, 20th this year. First in deep targets, 15th this year. Second in red zone targets, 23rd this year. Target quality rating was 18th. It's been 39th this year. So what are you noticing about Ridley? He's actually been a little bit at a disadvantage because of the opportunity. Mm-hmm. Lawrence, for a while there, wasn't even looking his way.
You know why?
Because he didn't play for 2 years.
Christian Kirk.
And because Christian Kirk is
who everyone
awesome.
Was shorting. Yeah.
7th in yards per out run in his good year, and he's 40th in yards per out run. So I think I think that it's both, guys. He didn't play for 2 years. He's older. It's the fact that he had a really good year, and he's not having a really good year.
Yeah, he may not even be on Jacksonville next season either. They're not incentivized to really pay him at all because they'll have to give up a 2nd-round pick instead of a 3rd or 4th, I think, if they re-sign him. Yeah. Jerry Jeudy is going to be our next guy here. We are going to say soft buy on Jerry Jeudy because, yeah, there's a lot of concerns with him. But we do know that he, because of his draft capital investment 4 years ago, there's going to be a lot of interest in this guy going into free agency, and he could get, honestly, a decent paycheck. Not like top dollar, maybe not even mid dollar, but like respectable enough that he's going to insulate his value for the next couple of years. And yeah, I mean, I am the first to say that I'm not a big Jerry Jeudy fan at this point. I loved him as a prospect, loved him coming into the NFL, and he's just flat out disappointed. And I wrote an article about it over at flockfantasy.com. If you haven't signed up there, please make sure you do use code domain and you'll get 30% off. If you go over there, we'll do a team blueprint for you as well for all y'all that are rebuilding.
You mean like this team blueprint?
Yeah, I know that one. Super cool. But anyways, I wrote an article over there about Jerry Jeudy, just talking about how he's like consistently regressed every year since his rookie season. And it's been very, very discouraging. But when you look at his ADOT, 53rd to 40th to 39th, it's actually gotten a little bit better in that metric. And he's kind of been so-so with route win rate as well, going from 47th to 88th last year to now 69th, which is nicer, but still not that great. I just think you're looking at a situation overall in Denver, and it just hasn't been ideal for years. And they're clearly not going to pay him. They're going to move on from him. They looked to trade him this season anyways, and they just couldn't get anything for him. So I'm very interested to see where he's going to land in the offseason, and it's enough for me to buy him at a discount now when I know you're going to have a lot of Jeudy fans in the offseason once they see the landing spot, want to buy him back at that point, and then you can sell him at a premium.
I will respectfully disagree, and I'm just going to say I'm not buying Jerry Jeudy because I just have never liked him. I'm still looking at his...
I mean, I don't like him either.
I know. But I still don't even like the price is my problem. Like, with Jerry Jeudy, I'm looking at the guys that are like value adjacent to him according to, again, Keep Trade Cut, which is, if this is an accurate representation of the market, like a mid-second, I'm taking a mid-second. Dubs, Cortland Sutton, like... what?
I mean, he's wide receiver 45.
But Kirk Cousins... Like, I'm taking all those guys over Judy. I want to get out on Judy and get one of those guys if I still can.
Jerome Ford, Roshan Johnson.
Roshan for sure I'd take over him. Easy. Gino is behind him.
You don't think there's a really good chance that
Jacoby Myers?
You don't think there's a really good chance that you could buy him now and flip him later for a higher price once he inevitably signs a deal with someone else?
I think there's a chance. It's just that's not a risk I'm personally willing to take.
Okay.
I do not think that the regression is going to stop.
So I would play the market there. He respectfully disagrees. That happens.
Yeah, well, although it's a disrespectful disagree, and I don't like Nathan anymore.
Oh.
Rasheed Rice. For all this time, we were looking for the prince that was promised, the wide receiver, the young rookie wide receiver who would come in and Patrick Mahomes finally would have a connection with. He'd get all these targets and all this production, and now he's here, and we're like, I think he's like the wide receiver 26 right now. It's like, this is what we were waiting for? Have we overcorrected because we've seen this crash and burn so many times with these Chiefs wide receivers? Travis Kelce's not going to be around forever. Rasheed Rice, as a rookie prospect that honestly wasn't a good prospect, came in, and now, I mean, in his last 2 games, 10 targets and 9 targets.
His ADOT is unbelievably low.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yes.
99th in the NFL.
But still, it's about the targets. And this year, you've seen that gradually go up. Obviously, he's 13th in target rate, which because he's 64th in target share, but 13th in target rate. That tells you more of a relative, like how is he getting targets when he's actually on the field? Because his big issue earlier in the season, when you look at his game log, I'm going to make sure I'm correct on this, is he wasn't on the field a whole lot. 31%, 18%, 46%, 30%, 49%, 51%. He wasn't on the field.
Yeah.
So we're not being targeted at a high rate, but even the last couple games, 67 and 69%.
Nice. It's getting a lot nicer.
And 10 and 9 targets. Guys, Rasheed Rice is what we've been waiting for. He is 2nd in drops, but he's 3rd in target separation. I'll let you take the next guy because he's our guy.
Joshua Downs.
Actually, he's still my guy.
Josh Downs. Oh, man. He's just done everything that we hoped that he would. Simon was bold enough to predict that come season end, Josh Downs would be a bona fide top 30 dynasty wide receiver, and it has come true at least as of now, and as long as nothing freakish happens over the last 5 weeks of the season, he's going to stay there as a top 30 wide receiver. He's absolutely earned that right. His yak ability has been great. I mean, half of his receiving yards this season have been from after the catch, and that really reigns true in his average depth of target, or average target distance, 7.4, 88th in the NFL. His target share as a rookie, 20%, which is, only 43rd in the NFL. But when you're playing with Michael Pittman, who gets as many targets as he does in that offense, that's really, really respectable and very encouraging as a rookie wide receiver. I think we all know that Josh Downs' ceiling is actually higher than Michael Pittman's, especially in an offense that we hope will be run by Anthony Richardson for the foreseeable future, where they can take those shots downfield, where he can run these amazing routes, find those soft spots in the zone, and take it to the house for a 75-yard touchdown. That's just something that Michael Pittman doesn't exactly do. That's not necessarily his skill set. Josh Downs has the ability to be effective in the slot and in the deep game as well. So we are very, very optimistic with him in the future. He's past that 500-yard threshold already, 12 games in the year, or 13, I think. No, 12. It's been 12 games. Yeah. So still a lot of football left to be played, but Josh Downs has shown a lot of promise. We are all in on buying Josh Downs because his price is still very, very reasonable. You can get him for a couple seconds. Demario Douglas is going to be the last guy we have here, and he is going to be one of the most intriguing second-year wide receivers going into 2024 that I think we're going to be analyzing a lot next offseason. There's probably going to be a lot of turnover in New England, maybe even a new head coach, definitely a new quarterback. He's very, very exciting, very, very interesting. We can't wait to dive into the full season metrics with Demario Douglas, but everything he's shown us thus far has been incredibly encouraging. His yards after the catch, 16th in the NFL. Target separation, 16th in the NFL. Route win rate, 24th. This is a 5th-round wide receiver, guys. This is not something that you expect from a 5th-round wide receiver his rookie year, especially in New England's horrible offense.
Horrible. Wide receiver 52 right now on Keep Trade Cut. Buy while you can.
Yep.
All right. Do us a huge favor. Make sure you drop a like on this video. Make sure you subscribe if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. And make sure you head over to flockfantasy.com/domain and use code domain like you mentioned if you want a team blueprint for your Dynasty team. It's a comprehensive multi-year plan for your Dynasty team. It's going to set out every single strategy tip that you need to keep in mind moving forward to build an actual Dynasty. Like winning year after year. That's what we're trying to help people do.
Yeah.
So That's why it's called Dynasty. Flockfantasy.com/domain. You have to use code domain. Appreciate you guys watching today. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you later.